allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to declare an open meeting. So moved. Second, declare an open meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I'm sorry, Kim, can I get that again? Who moved and who second?
I moved. Second.
Chance, thank you.
Number 4, notification of the Open Meetings Act is posted on the door in the back of the room. Number 5, roll call. Chance. Here. Katie.
Here.
Wyatt.
Present.
Myself here. Justin.
Present.
Melissa.
Here.
Okay, number 6, approve the agenda.
If you're okay on the discussion items, we do have several guests. And for part of the discussion items, one will be zoomed in from Burwell, so just depending upon time, for example, I may say, hey, can we move 14 to 12? Because he's actually in a board meeting right now in Burwell, but I think we've got flexibility, but to leave it as is, but if it's okay if we get through number 12, and maybe, hey, can we throw a 14 in here because he's ready?
I'll make an motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that motion.
They moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Number 7, the consent agenda, starting with the minutes from the last few meetings. Those were some pretty good notes on that goal setting meeting. You know, the bullet points, what we talked about there. Talk a little more about that later, but.
I apologize to you all that I missed that meeting. I missed one part. I didn't set an alarm.
I don't know, coming up probably, maybe next month or so, maybe a couple months. No questions on the minutes, then we'll go on to the financial reports on the following pages.
You should find a new insert for general fund and building fund revenue. I pulled out, or I added, updates. Kelly did get revenues for April, which were, comfortable. So you can, that's included now in your packet, which would be different than the soft copy you got last Thursday. Probably expect at least a doubling of the claims next month. We didn't have ESU in this month, that's why it's only 63,000 claims.
We'll get a big chunk.
Yes.
of
We did 2
Yes,
months.
we will.
2 months next month, probably. Probably make some transfers in the next month or two to activities and nutrition.
We did already.
We did already. And maybe in June, we'll look at, we budgeted 100,000 to depreciation from general fund. We'll probably be in a position to go ahead and do that, which will meet one of your strategic goals.
Move on to the claims then. Last night, given tours, pulled the freezer in the elementary, we replaced that compressor a few times.
No, the walk-in the walk-in freezer, I think last fall, and then this was the upright in the kitchen.
I don't know whether it was the walk-in
It was the upright.
It was the upright one,
Is the one we just did, yeah.
but have we done that a few times with that one?
Not to my knowledge, LeVay didn't mention that, I have a recollection that, cause those should last how long?
I have no idea, I thought
You know.
she told us
I
last
think
night.
there's
that
been
it-
maintenance on it twice, and the second time they did it.
Oh.
There has been a couple of times, but I think last few months.
It was a 20-plus-year-old freezer, yes, there's been maintenance on it, but it hasn't been a compressor built.
Okay, I understood.
It's
that-
just having a few issues here and there.
Okay, yeah, I understood that we had replaced the compressor 2 or 3 times, so maybe that's not quite right.
That wasn't the information that I had when it went down and was told we needed a new compressor, I wasn't told this is the third one.
Okay.
Cause I would have probably said, okay, we're not doing that. So, hopefully we're good for another decade, right?
That's your wiring in the boiler room?
So the boiler room, in fact, if you look over your shoulder, you can see an automatic safety shut-off valve that had to be put on the outside. After 50 years, we had to install the safety shut-off button, right there where a short person wouldn't reach it. So that was required by our boiler inspection last year, so Jake's been working on that bit by bit by bit, got it done the week before the inspector came to see it. So there you go. Boilers might be shut off permanently here soon anyway, potentially, but that, I contemplated slow playing it and just saying, Gail, we're not doing it. We'll take a hit on it and see what they say next year. Well, a boiler is one you probably, especially a 50-year-old boiler you're still using, probably not something to take a risk on.
So, I guess a question I had as I went through is this, the sped expenses that we have in here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, you know, in our, in the bond plan, it has more sped space in elementary, and we have the high school sped. Would any of this change because of that? Is this different than what?
No. None of this would change as a result of providing.
So we've been providing above
Better
what we
spaces.
currently,
I don't think-
we'll still be transporting kids to, okay.
Yeah, cause the kids we transport are all level 3 kids, so
Okay.
level 1 is 80% of our students, level 2 is 10%, level 3 is 10%. Those aren't precise.
Right. Okay.
Level 3 kids are generally, most places off-site.
Okay.
So, and a lot of these expenses are for our service providers that we do contract through ESU, and so they'll continue to provide those services, they'll just have, better, more discrete spaces to do so.
Those level 3s, what do you want, like, report?
These are ELC students.
Okay.
We've had students that have gone to CLC, which is Clearwater, that's always an option for us too, but that requires a pretty lengthy, SAT plan and IEP process. So right now we serve 4 students, on our level 3 category.
At town too.
And Tower and Wayne, yeah. So, which would be similar to CLC, but Tower goes through high school, CLC, and Clearwater just goes through 6th grade.
Anything else on the claims? No, we have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Number 8, celebration of excellence for tonight.
Sorry, we're going to be lined up for you.
Okay. Number 9, public comment. Just anybody who wants to talk?
Stop.
Think so. Okay, move to discussion items in. Number 10, budget committee, bond information committee meetings, reports. Yeah, I probably had, what, 2 or 3 this last one? At our walkthrough, our open house last night. Probably had, I think, 10 to 15 people. budget committee, I guess, is gonna go. I'll plan on being there.
Did that format work pretty good?
I think so. We thought maybe people would come all at 6:30, we'd have a group at 6:30,
Oh.
address them and tell them, okay, this is how the evening's gonna work, but it was more or less just greet them at the door and tell them, you know, these 4 different tables are here. Architects here, the construction managers here, the finance guy, you know, they could talk to or take a tour, board members, you know, administrators all there, so that's kinda how it worked. Tomorrow night, obviously, we'll have tours, so.
We had some people stay there for 5 minutes, and some people there for 2.5 hours, so.
They raised
it's
as
good.
much or as little as it is.
Right,
Yep.
and as casual as you want it to be, so, yep, I think it was a pretty good format.
So those guys will be back tomorrow night. Do it again. The next one will be Sunday the 26th. Do it here in Plainview again. Wyatt's been here a couple times right on Sunday for tours. Then we gave a couple people to walk up old that came up. Anything else?
Pretty uneventful, just kind of floating away. So, I think everybody's pretty well informed of what's coming up, so.
Okay. Number 11, then, got Ms. Pulsis here for band instrument inventory.
Oh, it's weekend. So I was coming back.
We'll move you through.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of packets that are coming around. One that is very colorful. The colors mean nothing. It's just an organization tool for me to kind of help stay organized in what we have in our virtual inventory. So look at your leisure, or look at your leisure. All of them are labeled specifically as what they are. So flutes are together, the oboe is another separate. It's a woodwind instrument, but it's on its own. Clarinets are together, saxophones are together, and so on and so forth. And then this packet here, just because I wanna just kinda run through the slides and then get an opportunity for questions. And then I brought some of our instruments here too, if you have any questions on what those look like. But these are just basically a rundown of the slides, and then on the back side is a numbered tier list, I think, of what our needs are, in terms of replacement. So you're welcome to grab one of those and pass that down as well. So the past 4 or 5 months, I've been going through everything that we have in our inventory, and that means scouring the inventory sheets that I have from when I first got here, and making sure that we have everything logged in as appropriately as it needs to be, just so we gotta make sure that that's there for insurance purposes too, in case anything happens in the room. But going through, play testing them, running through the gamut of what could possibly wrong with them or be possibly wrong with them, and then, you know, determining age. I scoured lots of serial number websites, trying to match up where our instruments line up, in terms of age, and then, based upon what the repairs may be and the year, the value of them. So just running through quickly, again, just as what I went through. Value considerations, historical evaluation, inspection of exterior of all instruments, because that does play an important part. They're not just shiny because we like shiny things. The lacquer on the outside of the instruments do hold a role in maintaining the instrument. So that is something that is to be considered as well. And then just, again, playing ability and whether or not the instrument's gonna be able to hold up in a 5th grader's hand who is just trying out for band. So this is what we currently have. I do have pictures in here. I also have instruments here as well if you would like a closer look at these, as some of the pictures then totally give a super great idea. Landon, if you just want to be ready at the gauntlet with an instrument that we have. This is a rundown of our instruments, averages, how many of them are being used. Flutes right now aren't a super huge concern with how many that we're getting in. We do have a lot of modern-er flutes, but of course we also still have our 1960s and 1970s instruments that have faced the test of time. We also have a piccolo from 1985, although it's old. It's currently being held up with rubber bands and a whole lot of love. It is not currently being used by a
Playing
student.
pretty well. I bet he can play that 85 piccolo pretty well.
Yes, yeah, well,
He can make it sing.
he, does the best that he can. The common issues that we run across, and this is pretty common across all woodwind instruments, is poor pads, alignment issues, leaking keys, broken springs. With flutes too, we have cork issues and head joint, which is the top of the part of the flute where you blow into it. So those are some of the issues that we run into with those. The average of our flutes was 1983. 3 are being used by the students, and of course, they're not using the, really dusty old ones. They're using some of our newer ones.
What's the deal with the very foul smell that sticks to you?
Would you like to grab that flute, Landon? You don't have to touch it, but there's a stink, and it does stick. This is one of the 1960s flutes, very tarnished. Yeah, you don't have to pick it up if you don't want to, or smell it. I don't recommend it. Yeah, you can walk if you want. We have other cases in there that don't smell real great either. This is just was one of the examples. Never
Does
thought.
mold exist then, that will mold
Oh, yeah.
accumulate, right?
Mold
Okay,
will
of course,
accumulate.
because there's spittle and then put in a case and left for,
Yep.
or humidity in the band room, which we had for many, many years.
Yep. Another big issue too with flutes is if kids don't swab them frequently, it makes the pads deteriorate much quicker.
Is the pad where you put your mouth?
The pads are the keys
Oh,
that
okay.
close. Basically, the more you put down, it makes the instrument longer, so you can play lower.
Okay.
Those are replaceable, pads are?
Yes, pads are replaceable.
That's something we can do ourselves, or is that something else?
I am trained to do it. I don't currently have a kit to do it. So that's the flute. We also have the piccolo with rubber bands, if you're curious to see what that looks like. Otherwise, we will continue working down our list. Our clarinets, this clarinet is broken in half. Didn't realize it until it was sent to the shop, and my repair guy called me and he's like, hey, I don't think you know, but this clarinet is in half. And I was like, okay. That's great. The one unknown flute or the one unknown clarinet is the broken in half clarinet. As it does not have a serial number on it anywhere that we can find, so we're not quite sure about it. We're also not quite sure on the brand of it. So my guess is it was probably like a retail chain, like Amazon or Walmart purchase, and it just, kid was rough with it, and it just snapped right in half. All of our clarinets are 6 of 7, that 7 of 7 is the split in half clarinet, so all of our clarinets are currently being used by all students. The E flat is not being used, the E flat is in this list, it's not on the board as it is not being used. The bass clarinet is also being used by a student right now, that went to the repair shop. He did the best that he could with it, but there are still some issues that come up with an older instrument, such as,
It's over 100 years old.
1913.
yeah.
And it's being used.
The case itself too shows its age, just like the gray sacks that we brought in, the case is showing its age. Also,
To know that when we make these purchases, they're going to last quite a while.
yes, yeah.
Investment for the future.
What do you expect, like an average, if you buy an instrument for life, you know?
Right, well-
60 years. 100 years old.
If it's taken care of and the kids are trained to take care of the instrument, they can last for a long time. And if they go in for regular maintenance, they could last for a long time. That was one of the things that I was sure that I was trained on as I was coming out of college, because I knew that would save some costs for the school in general too, is making sure that it was up to date on my instrument repair things. I just don't have the kit. Would love to get a kit.
How much
Just
is it?
the Valentino kit comes with pads for saxophones, clarinets, flutes, comes with cork. That kit was $400, but that would last me, for several years, as it doesn't come with just like 1 or 2 corks.
So it's
or 1 or 2
$400.
pads. Yes.
And we bought that, how much was that used saxophone?
6,400.
Okay.
We'll find 400 in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can probably do that.
Not that that's gonna, you know, some of these are 100 years old, but,
Right.
if you've got the skill set to do that,
I do.
why would we not spend $400?
Yep, and that would be amazing, cause it would, it'd help too, in case we have an emergency repair when we're at like district music contest and a kid has a pad fall out of an instrument, like, screw, right before a performance, it's not good. The tough thing with old instruments too is the metal where the keys are, they become really, really frail, and so they bend easy. That's something that I can't fix, that unfortunately is just an instrument age issue.
Do we need to start budgeting to like get,
I think.
you know, how many
Yeah.
of these?
I guess I was.
Like a
gonna
priority
we
list?
have
Yeah.
Once
our
she gets
retreat this summer
through
for
the
budget
whole-
retreat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have a list at the back, I'll go faster through these so they can see, basically common issues, pads, springs, alignment, which is basically the metal working along the instruments. Another big one that we'll get into is verdigris and, red rot. Another thing too is black lung, which is not near as common, but it is a thing. Saxophones also aged, not as many kids are using them, we have many who are renting out, which is good, so that I don't have to put some of these older instruments in their hands. The tenor saxophones, one is being used, the 1960 instrument is being used by a student right now, no, 1970 instrument is being used right now. This was made before we got the new Mary sax, so the old one is on here, the new one is not on here. The new one is fantastic.
So, forgive my ignorance here.
Sure.
So we have these for students that we offer, but we have students that also have their own instrument, is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And that's just their decision to
That
go.
is their decision. Sometimes we have a family-owned instrument that comes in, which works great in some cases. Sometimes we have a great-grandma or grandma saxophone that's come out of a closet, it's just as old as this, and I will make the instrument work because that would be cost-effective for the family, but if I can put an instrument in their hands that's gonna work for them while they're at band, because that also helps determine their success on the instrument too, because a kid feels pretty defeated if their instrument keeps breaking. My French horn player is going through that right now, which is terrible. Our horn, trumpets, cornets, all the cornets are old. The trumpet's not nearly as old. The horn is awful. It's old, it keeps falling apart, pieces are breaking off. The springs don't work, and the strings frequently come off. Bend, like I've never seen anything before. It's like it just took something and just started tearing it apart and throwing it, which just comes with being used. You wouldn't think that was a huge deal, but it does affect the playability of the instrument. A big thing with brass instrument is red rot, which is when the acidity of your spit and moisture starts rotting out the metal, and when it peeks through that lacquer, it makes the metal super weak and flexible, so it's hard to fix it. And sometimes repair technicians just won't touch it, which is the issue that we run across, and especially towards where the water keys are, where we're draining spit, that's where we see a lot of those issues come up. That is gross. Of all the professions I could have picked, I picked the gross one. Our tuba is not being used right now. The water keys that are on there that look like they're taped, that is our tuba, not being used by anybody. The baritone on the left side is dented as all get out, and the valve casings also don't like to function as well as they should. We make it work. I might have to hit something, and then usually it gets it going, but also not as great. The issue that we're running into with the euphoniums, and the reason why it's so high up on my list, is all of them are being used by a student right now, and 2 of them are actually being doubled by kids. The issue that I'm running into for next year is I can't have 2 students on one instrument and just passing off to one another. It just doesn't work. Great problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. So yeah, that's our instruments in a fast fashion. If you have any questions about anything that you see on the forums, or if you'd like to see an instrument that we brought in, we'd be happy to show it to you. But they are aged. We also have the new Very here, if you're curious to see what the new instrument looks like. We'd be happy to show that to you as well.
Pull that up so you can see what's important.
Yeah.
So I asked Ms. Folsas a few months ago, and she's revealed what I was afraid of. I had no idea that we had instruments from the 60s and beyond still in use, and so we're putting our kids in a position to say, I wanna be in the band, but I gotta rent an instrument or
That's
use
the
grandma's
biggest
old
part.
one, because
Yes.
Plainview Public Schools doesn't have quality useful instruments. So, you know, my recommendation is certainly over this next several budget cycles to work with Ms. Fullsauce to prioritize some instrument purchases over the next several cycles.
This is the new Berry Sacks.
Should have compared, had the other one right here.
Yeah,
Right.
I didn't bring the other one in, the running retail cost for these is $7,500, the reason why they cut 1,000 off of it is because of scuffing, you would never know. The scuffing is right along the neck, and nobody would have ever known, that it was there.
Yeah, there you are with it right there. Right.
I played it a little bit just cause I had to, cause I'm a saxophone player, so. Very nice instrument, and we seriously appreciate everything that you've done for us, when it comes to uniforms and then the instruments and taking care of the band. It's growing, so things are looking up.
So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Is there any way to find grants or anything to help pay for some of these?
Yes, yep,
Yes? Would
yep.
you- Whose responsibility is that?
I'd be
Yours?
happy to look out and find some, there's the Wakefield director actually got a grant where she was able to replace a lot of those instruments, I need to reach out to which one that was. But there's somewhere they'll give you do some like tasks here in town, like if you played the manor a few times a month, they'll give you $500 to put to what you need. Or, there are others out there that I can certainly do more research for.
And then when we have our budget retreat this summer, maybe you could have a list of prioritized instruments that need to happen sooner than others.
Okay, sure.
Sounds good?
Oh, yeah, yep. The other thing we're running into as well is with the French horn side too, coming up to the 712 band. I don't have mellophones for pep band or marching band, and we're a competitive group when it comes to marching band. And we'd like to be able to put those in the kids' hand, if that's a possibility. Otherwise, I will certainly do what I can to make it work.
So those are sooner than later items.
Those are sooner than later, as is the euphonium.
So over the last 30 years, we've averaged one new instrument or replaced instrument over every 3 years. So pick up that pace a little bit.
What's the
Top of
common
the alley,
practice
yeah.
for like all the other school districts? They all, like, does everybody else, like, the school provide all the instruments, or, I mean, are we lacking in that, or are we like, kind of like an average, I guess?
Talking to colleagues, they will put in a request to their administration and their school board, and the school board will either say yes or no, along with their administration. Talking to colleagues.
Like annually, you think, or
Yes.
for new,
Yep,
new
it is
instruments
annual.
annually, multiple?
Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's multiple, just depends on the need, that the school has. If the director has been there for a while and knows their inventory and what they've got, you know, they have a little bit more of a strategic plan when it comes to that. Whereas in my shoes, if I'm a little bit newer, and there's been a lot of turnover, you know, things tend to go to the wayside a little bit.
Well, we have an athletic director that brings us need new uniforms, need new helmets, need new things. We don't have a director for the music program. So you do have to communicate to us and let us know when this stuff needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Is there a rent or lease option?
There is a lease option. Mid-Bell and Sioux City does a lease option. I'd have to look elsewhere to see if anybody else does a lease option, but I know Mid-Bell and Sioux City does. And I think that's where we got some of our newer percussion instruments, is that was a lease done.
Like a lease to
by
own or
Mid-Bell.
just a
It
lease
was a
and they
lease.
return?
It was a lease to own.
If you had to guess, how many students do you think bring in their own instruments versus having to seek out an instrument in our band right now?
Oh, golly. Well, right now I've got 55 between all of them. 6th grade, almost all of them, all but 3, and there's 17 in that group, rent from the school. In the high school, the majority there have their own instruments. There's a few that do use school instruments in there, and they are using the rusty, decrepit instruments, because that's what we have.
Is that a preference to use their own, or is it they're kind of forced to get something decent?
I asked the 5th graders this year to get some of their own instruments because I didn't wanna put something else kind of breaking their hands, especially as a beginning band.
Sure, well, and I mean like those you said a lot of high schoolers have their own. And is that their preference to have their own, or would they use, if we had something decent, would they rather just use that?
As far as I'm aware, that is their preference, they were using them since I've been here. This is only year three, so as far as I'm aware, they've been using it since I've been here. I know that there are some that would probably like to use, better than what they've got instruments, but, I mean, they're pretty resilient kids and they don't like to
family had instruments in our family, so they
Yeah.
picked those based on what we had available.
I'm glad you're doing an inventory and, updating, tell us what it is.
Oh, yeah,
Because that's the
yeah.
first time I think we've ever seen that.
Well-
I've been on the board for 6 years.
Yeah.
Did you say rent from the school, or?
They do rent from the
They do.
school. Yep, they pay $30 and that just goes to maintenance worker, if kid accidentally dropped something or.
$30 for the year.
Yep, they only have to pay once.
They rent from a music store, it's quite a bit more, isn't it?
Oh, yes, yep, it's monthly and I think the low right now is 42. Is that what you guys are, cause Harper's doing hers, is that 42, right?
42 a month?
I think so. And then if the instrument gets bigger, it goes up. Well, I hope to stick around for a long time, so my hope is to continue keeping you guys up to date too, as the program continues to get bigger and the needs that come around.
Well, you're definitely taking the more competitions than I've ever seen in past years. We've got good, decent instruments in your hand, so.
Kids are capable,
Yeah,
so.
Let's come up with the number that you need to have annually, and
Okay.
let's give you something, anyway, line item in the budget, I would say.
Okay.
Right?
So, but prior to like a budget committee or budget retreat, it sounds like you have something that you could maybe use that you can bring to us
Yeah.
sooner than that, right?
Yes. Fortunately, they are the lesser expensive instruments, not 6,400 per, it's a little bit less than that. Euphoniums are running around 3,400, which is about half. Mellophones are about 1,200.
What's
So-
what's a euphonium?
Euphonium, it's baritone, it's one of the bigger brass instruments.
So is your program growing enough for you ever have like a flag corps to go?
Oh,
to the
gosh, I would
competitions?
love that. I would. Next year, we're looking at between 35 and 37. We're sitting at 25 right now. And if we keep going with this gung-ho group of fifth graders, the wonderful kids, we could see upwards towards 50 in the year after, which is wonderful. So, and a big fourth grade group coming up too. So, we have about 20-something kids in that fourth grade, and all of them are very interested in band, which is good.
Well, it's a credit to your teaching style and to you
Thank you.
personally. So keep it up.
Do the best I can.
Is fifth, what age do they start?
They start in fifth grade. Mhm. Yep. So if there's any other questions that I can answer for you, I'd be happy to. Otherwise, I know that I see you have other things that are happening as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and of course, room is always open as my email. And
I would say come up with a strategy.
Sure.
What your most important needs are first.
Okay.
You can come up with rotation, of every year.
Sure.
Or something like that, or some sort of a plan for us.
Okay.
Then we can probably put a number to it.
Sounds
Okay?
good.
All right.
Yep, I can absolutely do that. And again, thank you for all that you do. I know I've got colleagues that cannot share the same sentiments that I can. So the music department is very supportive between you guys and admin, so we appreciate it a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have any capital sitting on the fly?
I am not sure enough.
Anytime anybody wants to come play cowbell during pep band, it is.
Tell Adam.
Have you ever seen that SNL skit?
Oh, yeah, don't hear the reverb, Will Ferrell.
Yeah, that's why I said I am not sure enough, trust me.
So it's just a block.
All right, number 12, liability learners.
I just wanna give you a little background, so, I would say 5 years ago, I don't exactly remember, but, Deb Jensen approached us as a board member and asked about high ability learners, and at that time, her granddaughters who were at Laurel, she was seeing all the things that they were doing, and since then, I've been in contact with Laurel's HAL director, and, Dr. Aro had kind of mentioned that at your school board convention, Laurel was there as well, so maybe some of you have seen their program, but a lot of the things that we would love to implement, we kind of witnessed when Mrs. Yelk and I went to Laurel a couple of weeks ago. So been in contact with them for years, so some of these things were new to Mrs. Yelk, but I have been exposed to them, and so we just wanna share some things for you pertaining specifically to our program, and then what our wish would be moving forward. Okay, so Rule 3 does have some requirements, and the one thing that I wanted to point out is how we determine which students qualify for our HAL program. You'll notice up there that they have 3 different data points. We have listed at the bottom of this slide what we currently, let me put this down. At the bottom kind of shows you what we use for various measurements to determine our HAL students. So throughout the year, we have a reading and math screener that we administer to kids. So if they get 90% or higher on both of those assessments, whether it's Ames or math, then that automatically gives them eligibility. Teacher recommendation is also considered one of them. Sometimes you have kids who are right there within that 90% range, and so we feel like if they're close enough, sometimes it's a student who would benefit from those services.
And
So
sometimes they'll be at like 9, like they'll be at, in maps, they'll be at like a 95 or 96, and then like in Ames, they'll be at like an 87, 88. So sometimes it's looking at those and then being able to talk, I just go and talk to the teachers and like, hey, does this kid need help? Like, would this kid be beneficial? So, in small school, you can do those kind of things pretty easily.
And then you'll notice that students can qualify in the fall. The fall is the first time that we look at our data to determine that, but we also have students who go through and do our Ames web assessment in the winter, so we reevaluate whether or not there are students who could be added to the program based on that. And this is something we do every year. One of our takeaways from Laurel was this COGAT that they use as a benchmark, or not a benchmark, they use it as a screener to determine which students qualify. And this is not just an elementary screener, which is what kind of caught our attention, because everything that we do right now is strictly elementary only. So when we talked to Laura about that, it intrigued both Mrs. Yoke and I, and thought, oh, this could be a great assessment tool for us to use for all levels.
And we actually got to see them like do that, like the class was doing it, and it's a lot different than like your normal like map or Ames web. It's a lot of like visual, like looking at this and being able to see a pattern there. So it almost takes another type of intelligence in there that maybe you wouldn't get in our Ames web and our map testing, which I think would be good as well.
We're very intrigued by it.
Some kids just don't test very well.
Yeah.
But are very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are
would
you
that,
speaking from experience?
so if they test well on the
No,
other
I
tests,
wasn't
then they
intelligent.
qualify for how, this would be a way of qualifying additional children? So-
Possibly, yeah.
Yep.
And just having additional data points too. Okay, this is my current schedule, and I just put this on here, just to show you, how I can fit Helen, and it's not, I do my best, and I wanna serve the kids, and I wanna serve them to the best of my ability, but I'm also a full-time librarian. I also have 2 librarians that I service, or 2 libraries that I service, and I also teach lots of media classes, and so I can only really see each grade for their different subject for 30 minutes a week, which is better than nothing. And I definitely, I'm glad that I do it, and I'm glad to be able to help out, but it's not ideal. I mean, when we went to Laurel, they were, I'll use my own kid for example, because he qualifies for HAL, and I get him for an hour a week. So he qualifies for both math and reading. How they do their schedule is everybody that qualifies for HAL gets 30 minutes every day other than their Friday. So 4 days a week they get 30 minutes. So they're already above and beyond what we have. Plus then they get an additional 30 minutes for math and an additional 30 minutes. So while I see Jameson for 1 hour a week, I would see him for 3 hours a week.
Where are they fitting in that other hour?
The other hour.
Isn't that what you said?
Yes. So what they do is, let's say math class, whatever Jameson is working on, whatever standard his classmates are working on, they pull out and do something at a higher level
Of that core
of that
class.
specific, yes.
If
So
he's
that's-
if he's in HAL in math.
Yes.
Yes.
Then during math, he goes to
Uh-huh.
HAL.
For 30 minutes a week, he does
Okay.
that.
Okay.
and then the other time is like their study hall time. But even the kids that study our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade study hall time, 3 of the 5 days of during, they don't have study hall on Friday, and the other 3 days I'm teaching classes. So it's just like I'm just almost maxed out into what I can do, and I can't even touch this building. Like I can't even touch the high school. But like I said, when I start my year, I always have a lot. You can see purple as high school. I always have a lot more purple, and then when I throw my HAL classes in there, it just slowly takes less time over here too, which is always a bummer for me because I always do miss being over here. But it is just hard to fit everything in. So while I do it and I enjoy doing it and I want to continue serving the kids, I don't always feel like I probably serve them as well as someone who had more time to do it, who wasn't also trying to be a librarian. And the other thing is, like, even when I do have the breaks, I could have a 3-hour break and I could have students in my library for every 30 minutes and not necessarily have actual time to do my planning time or my library stuff. So there's just no time for me to add and to fit with their schedule, because that's also the concern, is that just because I might have a block of time doesn't mean that classroom has a block of time that they could come and see me either.
And one of the things that I will point out, so when you look at this and you're going to see her house schedule, that's just the time with the kids. The amount of time that it takes to plan some of these things is probably double what you see up there. And that was one of our takeaways when we sat down and talked to Laura at Laurel, is that one of the things that she really appreciates within her schedule, being a full-time HAL director for them essentially, is the planning time that she now has with the classroom teachers to make that more meaningful experience for the students.
And that would probably
Not even
because
possible.
most of the time, my large chunk of my teachers' planning time is my class, because they get a whole hour of planning time whenever they are in my media class, so.
You said you don't do anything with the high school?
No,
We're getting there, yes, yep.
This is just our numbers, so I do 2nd through 6th grade reading and math, like I said, 30 minutes a week for each grade and subject. And these are just the numbers of kids that we have currently, and we actually really have quite a few kids. So 2nd grade math, there's 4, there's 5 reading, and then there's 2 kids that actually qualify for both. In 3rd grade, there's 8 math kids, 2 reading and 2 that qualify for both. Again, 8 in 4th grade math, 5 in 4th grade reading, 3 that qualify for both. 6 in 5th grade math, 2 in reading, 2 that are in both, and then 9 in 6th grade math, 5 in 6th grade reading, and both, there's 5 of them that are in both math and reading. So that's kind of what, I take how much I time in. I mean, I do a lot, we'll do different things, sometimes they'll have to do some writing in our reading, sometimes they'll have to do, some Sudoku or something. I don't want it just to be another, worksheet or something. I want it to be fun for them, but I also want them to be challenged. So it's just trying to find those activities that can do both. And sometimes it is, they'll play bananagrams, or they'll play, there's this Uno game that's called Uno 99 where they have to add, and it's just strategic. So sometimes it is games and stuff just to give them a break. But Jen was saying, it's hard for me to plan my library, be a librarian, and plan well enough for HAL as well. As much as I try my best, it's hard to get all of that in.
Okay, so here's high school statistics for you. So as we said, we don't have the time to do that, but if we went through the same criteria that we did for the elementary, and when Mrs. Yoke did that, there are 33 students currently in 7 through 12.
So I can only look at math data,
Math
but,
or map?
cause that's
Math.
all, the math test, cause that's all the high school does. But just looking at math scores, we have 33 students, junior high, that we would have serviced this year, 7 through 12. So that we are not servicing at all, so.
And again, a lot of that would come with planning and different things for curriculum. And we have some ideas up here about that, but, when Mrs. Yolk and I were talking, ideally, we would love just to hire a full-time HAL director, that would be our wish. We talked about if we could do something short-term, or something within the next year or two based on this information. We talked about if we had one centralized library, that would help us a ton. She has Mrs. Baird as a para right now, but she has Mrs. Baird as a para because we're managing two different facilities, two different libraries. When we talked to Laura, she said that they took on a para too. So they have a full-time HAL person because she has para support and community volunteers. If you took those two people out of the equation, she would be in a very similar situation as us and just not have enough support to be able to serve the number of students that could qualify for the HAL program. Okay, so here are some more takeaways that we have.
And some of this is some of the stuff that we learned from there, and which I kind of went over, but that they were pulled during their win time, which is like their study hall time, as a HAL group, and that was everybody in HAL. And then in addition to that, they had specialized instruction time for both reading and math. So some of those kids were pulled 4 to 5 times a week for HAL at the elementary level. And they were able to, like I said, and sometimes like maybe for math, if it was a skill the kid, because sometimes kids are like high in number sense, but maybe not super high in geometry. So if they needed to just be a regular student, all that whole geometry unit, they could. But say that they were really good at geometry, then they had, it was called Beast.
Yep.
Is that on
It's
there?
on there.
Okay, Beast Academy, that then would like take it a next step further. And it was something that they were able to then, and the teachers worked really well, and instead of having maybe your normal worksheet, those kids would work through those different lessons, and that would be their grade. And then it would be more challenging for them. And the same thing really with reading too. If the students performed above their grade level on a pretest, that's like I said, they automatically utilize HAL service, although throughout the math unit, rather than working through grade level of curriculum. So if they knew everything at grade level, they could then work ahead. Middle school, they pulled them every day during their study hall. And then the high school was a volunteer time. So that, and she even admitted that her high school still wasn't perfect. That she still didn't have quite enough time in her schedule. So they kind of chose things, and they did things like career focus. So they would look into a career and then do like a presentation on that career, or write letters to people who had that career and ask them like interview and stuff. And she said she'd have kids that would be like, ooh, yeah, I don't want to do this, like after they went and were talking to someone who did that career. They also did a lot of SEL supports during their house, so social emotional learning. And sometimes we forget about our HAL kids, our high ability learners, having issues with anxiety and perfectionism and things like that. So they were able to supplement some of that with their HAL kids too, because sometimes when you are higher, those kids put a lot of pressure on themselves. So it had some of that, and part of that was that Jacob's Ladder curriculum. It was an SEL supported too, so they had, it was, challenged their reading, but it also talked about that social emotional learning as well.
What's WIN again, during the time?
That was like their study hall.
Yeah.
Stands for what I need, so it's specific targeted, interventions.
Yeah, so like your
whether
title
it's for
kids
special
would-
needs or
yeah.
whether it's for high ability, it's
Yeah.
what I need time.
Yeah, so like your title kids would have intervention during that time, or small group, yeah, it'd be depending on where they went, but yeah.
Our last slide here is we kind of made a comparison. What are the benefits versus what are the pros and cons to a HAL director? And so these are just some things that we talked about when we were looking at this particular position. something that, you know, Justin brought up a couple of months ago. So we have a huge need for it. With the current situation that we're in with Mrs. Yelp being the HAL coordinator, her schedule does not allow for it. So knowing that there are needs beyond elementary and the high school, we are just looking for more direction from you as to how or what you want to do moving forward with this particular area.
And honestly, it's not that I don't wanna, and I told Jen this when she approached me, it's not that I don't wanna help these kids, cause I do. I just, to be able to put that many hats on is hard sometimes, and then I don't feel like I'm giving anyone adequate me, or adequate my energy, like I said, and like, I will continue to do it, actually, and until, I think next year, I have done this basically out of, I mean, this isn't on my contract or anything, I've just done it, so, and I'm willing to continue to do it, but it's just, I will not do it as well as someone who has more time and has more time to dedicate to it.
You say Laurel had a full-time era that just deals with HAL.
Yes, so
Yeah,
they
full-time
have, their
HAL, yeah.
current teacher right now is part-time HAL, part-time instructional coach. Since this year, they took on a para to help her manage her classes and the planning part, in addition to some volunteers that she has. Because there are some retired teachers that have volunteered their time.
To do like the junior high,
Yep.
the study hall for the junior high kids.
What's an instructional coach?
Somebody who's, an expertise in different areas of curriculum for the staff and students.
She meets a lot with like the first year teachers
Mhm.
especially, just to make, like she meets once a week with them to like, just talk over things and if they need any help with curriculum and everything.
We don't have anyone.
We don't, but we utilize the ESU for that.
Okay.
So what's the total number of high-ability learners that we would have?
What's your
Yeah.
elementary number?
I don't know the total, if you go back to that slide, I could.
Well, there's
33
in the high
7
school.
Yeah,
through 12.
33 in the high school, and I bet there's,
32, 40, 54,
Plus 33.
plus
Yeah.
33, so 87 kids.
Some of those are double.
yeah,
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
those.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you probably have to take about 10, 12 off of that.
Still 75,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's a number.
What's our sped number again? You told me the other night.
68.
So we have more kids that are qualifying for the HAL, or similar number,
Mhm.
than that are in sped, and we're not really servicing them.
Not atypical, to be honest with you. I mean, this is obviously, I wanted to, this is informational and for conversation to be ongoing about maybe, again, a level of investment. But it does really start to paint a picture of, you know, and we probably ought not compare special needs kids versus high ability learner kids, but, you know, it's a valid question. How many students do we have in each of those particular categories and what are district expenses for each? Not atypical for school districts to assign HAL to somebody, so, but it's doing an injustice to those kids that need some extended learning and challenge. So definitely something that we want this to be the start of a conversation. We're not asking, obviously, for any kind of decision tonight, and not asking for, to increase FTE, but we're probably headed in that direction.
And it's not unusual for a small school not to have a director. I mean, there's very few schools who do. I just know that with the interaction that we've had with Laurel, the more frequent this conversation comes up, the numbers that we have that could qualify are more than the average person would think. So we're just hoping to somehow come up with a plan to be able to meet some more of these needs.
This got brought up in our goals.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we did. You're talking 20% of your
Student population.
And if we aren't, if we're doing them a disservice throughout their school career here, are we holding them back? You know, do they just kinda get held back a little bit more and more until they're kinda right with the pack at the status quo? I mean, do we see the numbers trend down? Do you see some of those kids' testing scores go down if we're not doing a good service, or are they just not doing as well as they possibly could?
I don't know, this is the first year, usually my sixth grade number is not as high as this. Usually, and actually my fifth grade has increased a lot. Like when I started with the fifth graders as second graders, there were only like 2 of them that qualified. So actually my numbers have been
Going up.
honestly, and like I said, sixth grade, and some of it's the class too, 100%, like the kids who are in those classes, but, I've had a lot more kids add lately than subtract. Like there's a lot of kids who I didn't have in second grade who I do now have. There's not as many that I do not see, if that makes sense. But then they're not getting, like once they get past sixth grade, they're not necessarily getting anything.
But 30 minutes a week isn't really
No.
anything
No,
significant.
no, it's not, 100%.
And we talk a lot about social emotional learning and the need for that. We were just mesmerized. It was third grade, right? Yes, we watched a third grade WIN time HAL group meet when we were in Laurel, and just the things that they were doing. What was the activity she had? It was, they had to.
Okay, rock, paper, scissors.
Yes, it was an alternate rock, paper, scissors game. The kids had to strategize to think what were the other groups going to pick so they could dominate the game based on different characters.
And they like kept a tally of what they got to see if like how they could figure out maybe the pattern there, like what the other team's pattern was. And they would talk through it and stuff. So, I mean, and there's a lot of resources that I've got that I've been looking into that I want to implement, you know, whether or not anything happens, like if I'm still doing it next year, there's a lot of things that I saw that I really liked that I wanna implement. But I just can't implement as much as she would implement it when she sees them for 3 hours a week.
You think having a full-time para dedicated just to that would help? I mean, until you, maybe down the road, we get another teacher, but, I mean, does that help at all, or not really? Need somebody to take charge of that whole?
It's the it's the planning that takes the long time, and then having to like, then you're almost teaching, and even she said that, you're almost teaching your para to teach the, whatever they're doing too. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Well, I think we better continue with the conversation, looking at this, come up with, we have that many students anyway, that's, we gotta make an investment there.
Yeah.
So, have to do better. So this is good information, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
think we need to go right to talk about this.
We did? What did I miss? Oh, we did that one.
Well,
Yeah.
if we are.
We talked
We
about
went
that.
back, they wanted to know, yes.
Okay, good job. That's even a possibility, I guess, at what point, at what time do we have to have that figured out? Well, yeah, that.
Well, I wasn't, was Mrs. Yule suggesting, was she suggesting somebody else, or was she suggesting her?
Somebody else. I love my library position.
Okay.
That's where my passion is.
So which
Is the
passion?
librarian.
Yeah, and so like it doesn't hurt my feelings. I will service those kids as long as no one else is servicing them, because I don't want them not to get I don't want them not to get anything. But that's not where my heart is, if that makes sense. I do it with love for the students, but it's not where I love library. That's where my heart is.
Thank you for taking this initiative and doing this, but it shouldn't all be on you, especially if you're not gonna be compensated for that.
And next year I would be,
So-
that is in the contract for next year. There
Okay.
is a HAL, it's on the, extra duty pays, but.
Okay.
So a para won't, it's a direct, I mean, if we're gonna do something, it'd be a director, it's either the same or it's a director, right? And then you need them by the beginning of the school year, right? And before that, even because curriculum for isn't. So I guess it's like, what were we looking at for a time frame on that one? If we're gonna talk about it, I guess, when do we need to start talking and have some, a yay or nay figured out?
Your HAL coordinator, or there is a separate degree for high ability learners high ability learner teacher too. So that is something that Laura didn't have initially, but she got before she was hired full-time for it. So trying to find one of those teachers could be a challenge, but that doesn't mean we can't put it out there to see what kind of interest is out there, or it could even be something that somebody within would pursue.
That's what how long does that take to get? Do we have somebody on staff that might have an interest that would be willing to go?
Yeah,
get
there
that?
are a lot more, there are more pathways to certification than there were several years ago to address the teacher shortage. The Department of Ed, has a para-to-teacher pathway. You know, it can be anybody, but generally your paras already have 1 foot in teaching. So, but the certification for that, somebody, if they've got the interest and the ambition, they would be, I would hesitate to say how far out from getting initial certification, which would be, you know, as they're working on it. But it does, I think Mrs. Yelp came to us as a social study, with a social studies endorsement, and she went and got her media endorsement so that she could service in this capacity. So I really respect and appreciate that she says, media is what I love and where I want to be, and it's not, you know, I don't want to transition to something else. I like it, appreciate it, and respect it, but I went back to school so I could serve Plainview Public Schools this way. So it would probably, this isn't a between now and August thing to figure out. This is probably a between now and next year thing to figure out.
But
So
you could
we're
begin the conversation with your paras, right? Is anybody interested in pursuing this, or?
That's probably safe to say. I mean, we could put a teaser out on Teaching Nebraska website and see if we get a hit, because you never know, oh, my spouse is moving closer to, and so I gotta move with them, and all of a sudden, just you catch lightning in a bottle or whatever, you have just a circumstance where a perfect person becomes available. But
Well, and I would have never been media either if we didn't move here. I've
Yeah.
never thought of pursuing that until we moved here, so you just never know it.
Do they have to have their teaching endorsement, their certificate, and then on top of that is how, or can a para go get house
So the
certified?
certificate is one thing, and then the endorsements are part of it.
Okay, yeah, so can a para go get health
Yes.
certified?
Yes, they'd have to
Don't
get a teaching
to-
certificate first, and then.
Oh, they do have to
endorsement.
get, that's what I was wondering, okay,
But we have a pair or two that have teaching certificates.
We do.
We do, yep.
okay.
Personal health can start out with para.
Yeah, we need to.
Mr. Rasmussen, this would be where I'd maybe ask you to move 14 up, so we can see, if we can go to CIP.
I guess just so this isn't getting lost, I guess, what's our next step in this discussion? We're talking about next meeting, I guess, what's our?
Well,
what's our
I think it
action?
should be part of your ongoing conversations about your strategic plan.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest, because I think that's gonna be a recurring conversation, right?
Okay. Good.
Yeah, well, for time's sake, we'll move 14 up to.
Hey, Adam, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Rasmussen, are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Adam Stolzer. He's principal of Burwell Public Schools, and he was our external team leader. So he would like to share with you their report. You also have a hard copy in your folder. So, Adam, you are live with Plainview Public Schools Board.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me. It was awesome to talk to everybody and visit your guys' school just about a month ago now. And so this was what our team put together. And then there's also another document, more formal typed up document that was sent to Mr. Alt, and he has that as well. So we'll just get right into it here. We came up on March 19th and 20th. We're there for a great 2 days. This was our team here. We had Tanya Anderson as a math instructor at St. Paul, Alex Cole, the principal at Meridian, Elizabeth Stott, the Title I teacher at Ford Public Schools, and then Michaela Ryder, who's the principal at Wheeler Central. So a really good team. We had a great conversations with Darren, Kyle, and Jen, and just everybody, all the stakeholders at Plainview. The purpose of this, as you guys know, we have to do this per Rule 10 through NDE every 5 years. Every school has to have a goal and then be evaluated through that. So we looked at all the evidence here, the school action plan, the school profile, the annual report, the assessment data, and then the team's opening presentation. We talked to just over 40 stakeholders, and that included administration, teachers, students, school board members, community members, and we visited classrooms along the way trying to get that perceptual data. So this is just a breakdown of our visit. The progress of your goals, you guys had set the goal to increase from 59 to 75%, with an emphasis in the main ideas on your reading. And you are using the MAP NWEA goal, or scores, to track that goal. And quite frankly, you have just crushed it and done an amazing job. You've had steady growth over the last 5 years. Your INSCIS scores show that, your AQuest scores show that, your MAP scores show that, but you've been very intentional with doing that. There are some observations that we saw, your nonfiction reading test, the letters training that you invested in as a board and as a school district and sending staff to. You have the 1 hour floating time to read, your CKLA curriculum, which I know you were piloting this year, and Jen went and looked at a bunch of schools for that. Hagerty and the U-Fly, the SAC meetings that you guys have there that your principals are leading and orchestrating. So you have done a great job of achieving that goal and getting there. I think you were just under 75%, but that was a very good bar to set there. You kept increasing all 5 years and you kept going up right there. So really good work there. As we went through the developing themes, we looked at the classrooms, and this is what we saw and what we heard, what it felt like. And teachers were actively working with students and encouraging them. Teachers provided whole group and small group instruction. Student engagement was observed. Students were respectful to each other and staff. Classrooms had the modern feels with new technology incorporated. Staff were checking for understanding. And one that our team kept coming back to is it just felt good to be in the buildings at Plainview Public Schools. It just felt good walking around, being in classrooms, seeing the student-to-teacher interactions, student-to-student interaction, teacher-to-teacher interaction, administration. It felt good to be in classrooms and walk around. There is a mutual sense of belonging and enjoyment at Plainview Public Schools. And that was something that was felt, and our team kept coming back to and talking about after we would go out and visit the school. And the horizontal goals you guys are working on, those were posted in the elementary. Focus groups, we interviewed those different groups. One thing to hang your hat on is communication. This is a direct quote from a community member. If you are not getting the communication, you are actively avoiding it. And that is something that schools take a lot of pride in, is when communication is key and reaching the stakeholders. That was a direct quote there. Students stated that they trust their teachers and administration. Everybody that we talked to felt like they had a positive role model and a teacher and administrator that they can go to. There are multiple ways to receive communications from the school. A big one is the Sunday communication. That was one that was made by name, brought up over and over again, was that Sunday communication. But there's also Facebook, there's also the apps that teachers are using, there's Power School, there's clear, consistent communication. From the team that we put together and looked at, we also dug through just kind of all the information that you as a school board put out with your bond. There is ample information out there for people to make an educated decision on what they want to do. There is a plethora of information that answers everything, so the communication on that aspect too was something that we made note of. Administration is accessible to all stakeholders. They're approachable, they can be talked to, there's follow through, but administration was accessible as a key highlight from the group interviews. Staff and students feel support of their administration. This was again an overwhelming theme, that staff and students alike felt that they could take anything to administration and that there was support from them. Kyle shared with us that 55% of students go on to the workforce or a two-year college after their education at Plainview. And the CTE offerings need to be progressive. That it kept being a point of conversation of the importance of CTE, the Fridays at Northeast, of how that has been a springboard for students working in the community or going to two-year schools. So that was another theme that we saw. Back to that welcoming and just a sense of belonging was that the pirate pride that goes through everybody, the way they talk, the way they act in the school, just that pirate pride is very evident. Plainview prioritized Haggerty and letters training for all elementary staff, not just teachers, but paras were also trained in this, other support staff, so that was huge, that system-wide, there was that Haggerty and letters training. And then the SAC meetings was, again, another point of emphasis of how, at small schools, we don't have 7 math teachers that we can all get together, but we can get together in teams and we can talk about that vertical alignment system-wide. So that was a huge priority and a thing that teachers and stakeholders really talked highly of. So after we did that, we start to formulate our accommodations and recommendations, the accommodations being the positives and then some recommendations. And again, they're just recommendations to amplify the already positive things that you guys are doing in Plainview. The accommodation that there's a reason this is number 1, but there is an overwhelming support for the administration from staff, students, and stakeholders. From Darren down to his principals, there is a overwhelming support. They have a true admiration for the administrative team that is in Plainview, and school districts are only as good as their leadership, and you have very, very strong leaders who are very highly sought by the community, teachers, and students alike. So a huge kudos there, and it was overwhelming. Every time that we talked, it was just how awesome and supportive the administrators are. Data-informed decisions. Branching Minds is a huge tool that your schools use. This is where it houses your MAP scores, your INSCA scores, student behaviors. And this is a system that every teacher can talk to. Every teacher knew how to use it, they knew how to access it, they knew why they had it, and it just kept coming up of a tool and a system that was invested in and has become fruitful for student success and student growth. Communication, again, we talked about at the themes early on, just the stakeholders at Plainview Public Schools are properly informed with the Sunday call and email, social media, and Power School. 2 more commendations that we came up with was the intervention. Plainview uses data to attack areas of concern. It's not based off of feelings, it's based off of facts. What do we need to attack academically? How do we attack attendance? Anything else from there is all attacked with data. And I think that's clear and evident when you look at the last 5 years for Plainview and you look at your AQuest scores over the last 5 years. It's been a straight line up. Across the board, everywhere. Across the board, it's been a straight line up, and that's intentional use of academic interventions, behavioral interventions, all of those there. So you guys should be really, really proud of that. And then the culture, everybody bleeds pirate pride. Staff are connected and they work well together. You could tell they trust each other. They work well. Students have a sense of community. Administration is aligned, and everybody's just steering the ship in the same direction. It just seems everybody has a common goal, a common purpose, and it all starts with the pirate pride of doing what's best for students at Plainview. So those would be our 5 commendations. Some recommendations, again, these are just to amplify the already amazing things that you guys have going on. Continue to evolve and grow the MTSS process at Plainview Public Schools. All the essential components are in place. You have tiers of students that you're showing on Branching Minds, you have interventions, you have SAT meetings, you've addressed Tier 1 instruction with deliberate and intentional curriculum adoptions. Just continue to formalize and grow and evolve that process, and that's what continuous school improvement is continuing to do those things. Continue to prioritize reading as a school-wide improvement. You're gonna have full implementation of CKLA coming up in the next school year. Early intervention with PK3 instruction could prove fruitful. And then just continue to build on those science and reading principles that you've already established. Go from there. Obviously, statewide, there's the State Literacy Act. There's legislation out there that they're talking about. I don't think it ever has come about of that third grade reading, but reading and literacy is at the forefront across the state. So continue to push that. And then continue to be progressive with your educational spaces for students now and in the future at Plainview Public Schools. Grow your CT opportunities in light of the student post-secondary trends, and prioritize school safety and functional spaces for the evolving needs of students and staff. Education is continuing to grow and change, so just continue to be progressive with your educational spaces. And this right here is, I always get emotional when we talk about these at schools, because this is what your stakeholders said about Plainview. And those are some pretty powerful words up there. Support, pride, welcoming, culture, community, connected. We asked every group one word, and during interviews we kept track of words that kept coming up to the front. And this is the summary of Plainview over 2 days. This is how people talk about you out in the community. This is how they talk to you about complete strangers. This is something to celebrate right here. Something to celebrate. This is your biggest newspaper article, because people are saying this and they're beating the drum for Plainview, and these are the words they're saying. So you should be proud of these. Be proud of your teachers, your staff, everybody that you have around Plainview is what people are saying. And that's the next step, is just reflect and celebrate on the success and the standards that you've already accomplished in your intentional growth. Embrace the responsibility that this is a continuous cycle. And you have the exit report, so just celebrate this. I go back to it because this is my favorite part of doing these visits, is seeing these that come up with different people in different schools. But celebrate, be proud of the work that you guys are doing at Plainview Public Schools, because it's pretty amazing.
Well, thanks a lot for providing that report to us. A lot of good findings. I'd like to hear that.
So, okay, you ask some questions, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was just looking at your recommendations. I mean, the recommendations you gave is just continue doing what we're doing, except you say grow CTE. I guess that'd be the new one. So I mean, just keep doing what we're doing, or is, I mean, where were our shortfalls? I mean, did we miss the mark on anything, or is it sounds like everything is it's just great?
Everything is going good. You didn't miss the mark on anything. When we say grow CTE opportunities, are your current facilities, opportunities, course offerings matching the needs of your students? Do you have the courses in place? Do you have the tools or resources in place to match the needs of your students? Are your spaces that you currently have set up for the optimal student success? So just continue to be progressive in that. Over half of your student body, that when they graduate, is going into those CTE fields. And so are you meeting all of those CTE fields needs from there to help promote the students? Are they able to do everything that they want to do? Are you making the best use of that to help set them up for success?
Well, Adam, I know that they're probably expecting you back in your board meeting there in Burwell. We obviously appreciate your service to the Department of Ed. and serving us in, as an external team leader, so, giving us an assessment from your expertise, the expectations of NDE, and just an outside thorough assessment. So thank you, and we know you'll take care of this with the Department of Ed on behalf of the school district, filing it with them.
Yep, it's all, everything has been filed, it's all done there, everybody's done their, what we need to do there on your end as well, so. Humbling opportunity, just thank you guys for letting me come in, a great team to work with, it was a great visit, well organized, well executed, on your guys' end, so just thank you, and if I could ever be of service, I'm just a phone call away.
Okay, thanks so much, Adam.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, guys.
We'll talk to you again.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Need a motion.
So they'll do it again in 5 years?
Yep.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. In your folder was, a lot of similar data that was just provided in PowerPoint. There was a reference to the visit we had 5 years ago and who was here, which you may or may not remember, but Superintendent Ainsworth was Dale Hafer was our external team leader for that 5 years ago, so. Yeah, it's,
I don't remember getting a report like that. Why?
yeah, I don't know that we had a presentation at a board
It's
meeting.
kinda nice to.
But it might-
Yeah, did we do an interview?
Mike and I did.
5 years ago.
Yeah, I did on the phone. I
You
wasn't
guys
able to
did
be
a
there.
phone interview.
Stuff.
Yeah.
They actually shared all that with the staff too, at the end of their visit, before they left.
Yeah, it's a good, it's a report, and it looks good on this. I just don't know what you do with it. You just said, just keep doing what you're doing. And so I was kinda hoping there'd be, identify some actual things
Growth
that we.
opportunities.
Right, like, oh, you know what, you could do better here, or, this would, maybe we are just perfect.
That's just on us to keep figuring that out.
Yeah, I guess I recognize that they could have said, hey, you don't have a bona fide high ability learner program, Plainview Public Schools.
Or you're.
Get with it.
If
We'll see you in 5 years.
If CTE is your
And
thing,
we look-
you don't have the facilities, or you do.
Yeah,
Instead,
that, I guess that
tell us
was
to
it.
self-evaluate.
That was maybe a takeaway, from there is, okay, if you've got this high percentage of kids going into CTE.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
felt that.
nice way of saying, you gotta continue to grow here, as opposed to saying you are deficient. Yeah, I recognize that, too, Justin, but sometimes affirmation too is helpful to continue to reach for goals and pursue.
Much better than the alternative pursuit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Report
true.
like that. Not that they probably do anything.
Just don't wanna put gaslit, I guess. It's good though, good.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll flip then and go to, number 13 now. Talk a bit more about the board's strategic planning, session that we had, the goals. Like I said, there's a pretty good summary in those minutes, what we talked about. I guess our next steps are probably trying to get budget committee maybe together next week to try and prioritize some of the upcoming capital expenditures. And then once we get that prioritized, then we would get back together, do another full board meeting like we had with the administration, and kind of narrow down those goals a little bit more, expand on it. Probably sometime, I don't know when May, later May, something like that.
I'll pick you up this time.
Thank you.
That's kind of the next steps, I think, is for us to get together and look over that list.
Yeah, 'cause
See what's coming down the road.
we really just started just getting into it a little bit.
Yeah, it was a good meeting though. It was
Yeah.
good, everybody had good ideas.
There's some common themes too.
I would, as you have conversation, this is a good brainstorm, and that's a good way to start. As you you go on with your conversation, I would just suggest, you know, if you have 10 goals, you'll meet none. If you have 3 goals, you might meet 3, right? So, you know, it will just be good to keep in mind as you try to drill down on, you know, priorities when you got, you know, 30 bullet points. That's a good brainstorm.
So yeah, we'll try to get together maybe next week. We thought we could maybe, it might work better online, or we can get together in person. I'll be in contact with Dr. Earl, see what the schedule, is for that, so.
For the budget committee.
Yeah, okay.
And the goals will be later, like May or?
Yeah, probably, I don't know, you know, we'll probably let the bond election in the next meeting go by.
Sure, that could also set your goals.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm probably gonna do more to help after the fact,
Yeah.
but we'll forward. Yeah, okay, number 15 then, report with the American Civics meeting.
We check all the boxes.
All good?
And we're good to go, so let's go to number 16.
Sounds good.
Kyle did mention, or do you want to make mention what you told us about bringing up next year?
Which part?
New anythings or anything like that? Do you need anything?
Oh, just talked about, next spring, I will bring to you guys, some ELA resources, so for 7-12, English department, we'll have some different things that we'll bring forward for purchases, because the current, resources that we're using we're in our last year here coming up in 26, 27. And talking with Michelle and Taylor, they don't wanna renew the current one that we're using, so I'll bring you guys some stuff here next spring to look at.
Okay. Number 16 then, policy review. Got a couple to look at.
Okay, we've got a series of special ed policies over the course of the next several months that we'll want to review, beginning with 61201, free appropriate public education. Oftentimes, if you ever hear something, this is called FAPE, and FAPE is used quite routinely by special ed directors, because its terminology comes from the feds. So this policy we actually looked at just in 2023 because unicameral made us add this last statement to all of our SPED policies. So it is the most, our 612 series is the most regulated, some would maybe say over-regulated series of policies because it has to do with special needs kids. And that ties the feds directly to every school in the nation. So these are written for you. You have special ed people, specialists on site. We also have ESU special ed specialists that serve us in this regard too, and keep us legal and so on. It'll be good to go through 612. I don't expect you to obviously necessarily to read them, but there are a few things that I'll kind of try to point out. We serve students all the way to age 21, birth to 21. 612 series mandates that we serve students from birth to 21. Public school has that responsibility. So there is school age. School age is what everybody's used to. When they're in school and they're special needs kids, they get special ed services. But we also serve students from the moment they're born until 21 if their IEP so requires it. So 61201, 61202, full educational opportunity goal. So a lot of similar language. This paragraph is of the same as the previous one. So there would just be a small piece of nomenclature in this policy different from the last one, and a lot. I'm no specialist, so I'm not gonna try to interpret anything too detailed for you really on any of these. Child find is a big one though. And we have serious responsibilities, and it is exactly what the title is. We have to find kids that may need services, because the sooner you find them, and the sooner you start serving them, you know, you can look at it a couple of different ways, but 99% of it is that that kid needs to be served so that they can be successful in life. 1% of it is, the sooner we find them, the less it's gonna cost the taxpayers. So child find, I mean, so these, we're working with hospitals, we're working with daycares, we're working with, you know, we ask anybody, any, you know, parents, anybody, we push out information. You know, somebody that's had a, you know, baby, oh, my daughter had a baby and we think there's something wrong. Well, okay, all we need is make a phone call, we're gonna send somebody out, a specialist to evaluate that 6-month-old, to look for developmental delays already at 6 months. They're 3 years old and they're not talking, that's a big one. Well, okay, but we don't naturally, as a school district, Kyle and Jen don't naturally know where these children may or may not be. So we work with a lot of providers in our community, and just word of mouth, hey, and most people are aware, they're told at the hospital, they receive information, every family, I believe, has a stack they may send with you is, hey, here's where you can have access to services if you feel developmentally there may be some issues. So this is child find, and it's a big one, and something that we have to be very, very deliberate about. And then they put in, they talk about this, the SAT team, assistance team, the multidisciplinary team. So these would be the teams of specialists that would come together to try to identify if there's a special need, and how soon can we catch it, and how quickly can we start to provide services before it becomes more profound. So that's the whole idea behind child find. So a whole series of 612 policies that we're required by the Department of Ed to go through and upload every year to show that we have these policies, that they exist. And I just had to do that last month, so the timing is right that we happen to be on this series. So over the course of the next several months, we'll kind of work through 612. I'll do my homework, and if there's particular parts in there that I'm, you know, okay, you need to be aware. But quite honestly, most all your policies, we might not be aware of precise language, but they do govern us.
I submitted an article to the newspaper this week that paints a picture of all the different services that we offer at Plainview Public Schools with statistics as far as how many kids we serve with each different provider. So there'll be a lot of information circulating specifically about that. And I didn't directly include high school numbers, but our elementary numbers are definitely predominant.
Yeah, and that's very, very typical. Your sped numbers in elementary are far superior in number to high school, and they're supposed to be, because they need special services, and they receive the special services, and then they don't need them. But if you do it, if you're doing it well and right, the whole goal is to grow through and out of your IEP. And that generally is what happens, and when kids come into high school, they maybe don't need those special services anymore. But obviously there are students that receive special services through age 20.
Do we serve more kids with special needs than maybe our neighboring school districts do?
No,
No.
we're lower than Osmond, for example. We're right at the state average of 14, 15, 16%.
Okay.
But I do know that Osmond is higher for what, there can be a variety of reasons of what maybe attracts certain, people to a particular community. I don't know what that might be for any particular community, but we're right at, Plainview Public Schools is right at state average.
Okay, well, we'll move on to 17 then. Discuss take possible action setting classified staff salaries for 26-27. You guys, negotiations met, talked about that.
Tough negotiation, really tough. Dr. Alt recommended a 4% raise across the board. We agreed. It's pretty simple. So, the longevity figure in anyway for some, for example, for some of our paras anyway, with 4%
questions? Pretty simple.
When does the longevity one kick in?
Okay, you should have in your hard copy.
Active, we'll just turn it over.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
Yep. So designed by the board many years ago, just to incentivize folks to stick around, right, to stay, and every X amount of years, you get an extra beyond the board's, annual increase.
How come, did you guys all have like a question mark on one?
I do not. Which one is it?
Under technology? It just says set up with a question mark, so I don't know.
That's fine.
I don't know what that means.
I'm not sure how that calculate, I mean, it's where you do that one.
Okay,
Oh, we
that's
did have
just-
two
that's
copies.
just
We
two
did have an
questions.
extra.
Yeah, but not that one, that was my note on that, something else to say, but I don't know that. That's a external conversation.
Just to make sure.
But you have this.
I don't, I think that's the only one I have, so I don't know what to do about it, so. I don't know, everybody had a note on it.
So what did we say here for, impact on the budget anyway, if the,
Yeah, just under 40,000 for 4% plus benefits, which would be an increase. So, which is in line last year's was about the same, 32 to 35,000. This would be about 37, 38. In the whole $6 million-ish budget that we'll likely have for 26, 27, I mean, that's a minimal percentage. So with regard though to staffing, we are gonna see a flip to the black of our teacher expense, because we're losing two teachers to retirement. We hired two brand new teachers, so there's a significant gap in the salaries that we'll pay there. An anticipated healthcare benefit, anticipate a shift to black there as well. So I mean, if you're looking for, okay, will we be able to pay for it with somewhere else within? Sure. So we're not gonna see a $38,000 bump in, due to this. I mean, when we look at the whole scheme of it, it'll, if you throw in all personnel, so administrators, teachers, classified, there'll be an increase, but it's not overly significant on the $6 million budget. It's a fraction.
So it says on your sub-rate, substitution rate, is that affected by?
No, the sub-rate you'll set.
Or is that something else?
The sub-rate you'll set separate next
Okay.
month.
That doesn't follow the.
No.
Okay.
What are we at right now for subrate?
145?
140 a day.
140 a day, and for the 11th day and beyond in the same position, so somebody that's doing maternity
Long
leave,
term.
that's 180
Yes.
Okay.
a day, so it goes up on day 11 of your long term.
No.
we need, got two more kids going, anyway.
Yeah, he's just looking to get out of the house.
Maybe that's.
No, it'd be my wife wanting to get away for a little bit, I think. No, I was just curious.
I'll make a motion to accept the classified wages scale for 26, 27 as presented.
I'd second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded to accept classified wage scale for 26, 27 as presented. Any other discussion? Vote, myself, yes. Justin?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yep.
James?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Number 18. Discuss and take possible action on technology purchases for 26, 27, following E-rate reimbursement. Tom, can you talk about that?
Yeah, so last year we had this similar deal where we had to write a big check and then we got all kinds of money back and our actual total out of pocket was about, I don't know, 5,000 or something. So similar deal, so I said, you know what, Tom, why don't you kinda come in and go through that? You have a 15 front page, front back, in your folder that says 471 on it, it's Form 471. Tom's not gonna go through that, but I just want you to see what he manages.
I condensed it down into a 8-line spreadsheet.
Yeah, so you have a spreadsheet in your agenda packet, and then you've got a 15-page front back in your folder. I didn't, so, which, again, that was maybe a waste of paper, but I wanted you to see what Tom works through when he does E-rate.
So E-rate is basically government money that we can use for the purchase of telecommunications and networking equipment. It goes on 3-year cycles. We just started a new cycle this year of 3 years, so I think we qualified for $60,000 or $65,000 that we can choose to use if we want to over the next 3 years. And then they base it off of your free and reduced lunch, I believe, on how much you get reimbursed out of that 60 or whatever you qualify for, and we qualify for a 70% reimbursement rate. So whatever we use over the next 3 years out of that money, we will get 70% reimbursed back. And so I've just got 3 things on here to purchase. Do you guys have that spreadsheet up? If I say this, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it should have number 18 on it.
But the 3 things, one is it's a new firewall / router for the school. The one we have now is 6 years old. It's approaching its end of life for that model, which means the company doesn't support it anymore. It'll no longer have updates. Pretty important piece of equipment for our network. So this would be the purchase of a new one. Also a new network switch to replace an old one, the last old switch that we have in the school, and then a battery backup to power some of our vital networking equipment in case we get a power surge or power go out or that kind of thing. So the total price of all that comes to roughly $12,500. So we get 70% of that reimbursed. So at the end of the day, now we still most likely are gonna have to write a check for that $12,500, but then we will file another form, get our 70%, they'll send us a check back. So at the end of the day, we're only spending just under $6,000 for that. And not everything in there, the reason that's more than 30%, there are some things in there, the licensing for the firewall, there's some parts of that don't qualify for E-rate. Not all of it does, so there's parts of that don't qualify, so that's why that number is higher than 30%.
We'd really be looking at the total amount eligible and ineligible, right?
Correct.
The eligible amount, we can get 70% of that back.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there any installation costs associated with this, Tom, or do you handle all the
Me.
installation? Oh,
Just me.
that's the reason why we got you.
No, this will be pretty straightforward stuff,
Okay.
just replacing, it's all the same brands of stuff that we already have, so it should swap out pretty easily,
Okay.
so. And the biggest price on there, the FortiGate, that first one, the firewall, part of that, about half of that is just the price for the appliance, the physical box. And then the other half is a 3-year license / service plan, so that you get updates. You gotta pay licenses for a lot of that stuff to just even work. You could buy the box, but it would be a brick if you don't pay for the licensing fees. So that would be for 3 years, and it would be something that this would last us. Like I said, the other one's been in there for 6 years, so this will be at least a 6-year deal. And then in 3 years, we just renew the licensing on it, which would be, a fraction of that 8,000. So, and the other two things, they would be, I would hope to get more than 6 years out of the other two things, so.
We currently paying for licensing with what we have?
Yep. Yep.
So it'd be basically it'd be the same cost then, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, we got a little extra cost because we're buying a new box.
Right.
But yes, it would be, the licensing to license this one is gonna be the same as if we didn't get it and I just
Okay.
relicensed the one that we got, so. Which, yeah, its 3-year license comes up, I think, at the end of May or in June or something like that, sometime this summer, I believe. So either way, we would have to renew that if this didn't get purchased, so.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the initial expense of $12,528.82 for E-rate technology purchases for 2026 to 2027, with out-of-pocket total of $5,956.09 after E-rate reimbursement.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded then to approve the initial expense of $12,528.82 for E-rate technology purchases for 26-27. Out-of-pocket total $59,5609 after E-rate reimbursement. Go ahead and vote. Chance?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Justin?
Yes.
Melissa? Motion carried 6-0. Move on to number 19, the activity director's report.
Since we met last, speech was district champions, finished 5th at state. That's your list of academic all-state winners from the winter seasons. And we got district music contest on April 24th.
Like it was brief.
There you go.
Okay, 20, principal's report.
I don't have anything else to add to what's listed.
You got any competition to see who's would be.
Sort of.
Kyle, are you still going to Sandy Creek on Thursday?
Yes. Okay. Jeremy and I are going, so.
Okay. Yeah, what's the vacation?
All right, 21, superintendent's report.
We'll have a very thorough unicameral report for you. They're gonna adjourn on Friday. They're not taking up any new bills. They are done. On Friday, they're only gonna, consider overriding any governor vetoes, which still could come. What we do know is 1050 failed. That was the 3rd grade retention bill, so it could come back. I visited about automatic retention of 3rd graders, if they're not reading at grade level, would be, not be great. That failed. Free lunch is gonna be expanded. More families are gonna be eligible for free school lunch. The human relations requirement has been done away with to receive a substitute certificate. We've had that for decades. And 878 requires 6 weeks of paid leave, paid maternity leave for government employees. So we're kinda waiting to see from our lawyers how that's gonna potentially affect us, cause that's different. Our folks are entitled to pay leave through FMLA, or entitled to leave through FMLA, but it's not paid. They have to use their own paid leave bank. So this would require them to be paid through what ways, we're not sure. So we'll have a very thorough report for you for May. Still working on summer school. We'll have a thorough plan, ready plan for you next month. Plainview Public Schools not currently a Chamber of Commerce member. Some schools are, some aren't. I think we should be, so I'm probably gonna pay that $135 membership. Specifically, since we're a work-based learning school on Friday, we need a good relationship with the city chamber. So just making you aware of that. I will have formal estimates for painting acoustic panels and bleachers for the Pirate Gym for you to consider next month. Not automatically necessarily a summer project, I'll have it for you to consider. I've got a bleacher guy coming tomorrow. The next two were accidentally left on from last month. We've had 4 additional PTO days, so we're not gonna let out of school early. We've had 4 days, they're not all snow days, but they like snow days. So we've had 4 days where, contract days where teachers were required to be here, their PTO, it was essentially paid time off. So, 4 is about average of what we would normally have. 3 of them were activities. We call off school for activities that weren't anticipated. Going to Dundee County Stratton to play football, to host conference wrestling, which happens once every 7 years, and to host district girls wrestling, which we have control over whether we want to do that. We happen to be awarded that. So those are 2 things we hadn't anticipated when we put the calendar together. And then, enrollment summary, went to NERC's conference. In your folder, you do have, information about policy support service from NASB. Our policy provider, NASB, died suddenly last fall. NASB is transitioning to a Perry Law Firm supported and Spark Data supported policy service. We're likely gonna have to do this, so I would like to have you look at that. That was in your folder, not your agenda packet, so it was your supplemental materials. I would like you to look at that between now and next month, because we are gonna probably have to go that route so that we can sustain, you know, our policies and our policy service through NASB. It will come with some expense. Yes, policy support service from NASB. So just, I would just have you
Who's
kind of.
requiring that?
I would have you kind of know, well, we are required by law to have a system of policies.
Oh,
And
right.
we have several places that provide a policy service. We've been with NASB for years. I brought to the board about 3 years ago about maybe a transition to KSB, and it was gonna be over 10 grand. So we're like, NASB is fine. And then our guy passed away last year, and they've been scrambling to come up with so this will be a good, system provided by NASB, but it is gonna come with some expense. We'll find out more in the coming months.
It's because it's because it's changed in NASB.
No, staying with NASB, but how they're
I mean,
going
how
about
they're
providing the
operating.
service, exactly right, and involving Perry Law Firm a little bit more. So it will be fine. They use Spark Data, which maybe you've heard of, gone to a couple of conferences. I put some NERC's information in there for you. That's less than $1,000 annually, but it's good for you to know the services that they provide. I put a copy of the 26-27 calendar that we passed last month in your supplemental materials, as well as that CIP external report. Okay, and that's all I have.
If that free and reduced lunch changes,
Yes.
does that change like the E-rate and?
No,
No?
that's different, so it's just, they're just expanding who will qualify for, I see what you're saying. It will expand how they qualify, how that will be then reflected in your E-rate reimbursement.
Or other
Unless
things.
E-rate changes and say, hey, now you just made it so everybody qualifies, we shouldn't have to honor our reimbursement because now you let everybody have free lunch. So I would expect a potential adjustment in that, but we haven't heard from them yet that there will be, because this is just brand new,
Right.
just passed last week.
So there might just be some upside there. We're still getting the
They
7%.
adjust, yeah, well, I mean, there's other things that free and reduced.
Yes,
lunch,
free and
government-
reduced
government-
is just your
They use that a lot,
socioeconomic status determines grant
Yeah.
eligibility and just all kinds of things. But they all just kind of shift. When one thing goes, they'll all adjust.
At our last meeting, we talked about, shortening the school year this year. I think in your notes, you said we're not doing that, is that?
Yeah,
But, I mean, I guess we wanted to discuss it, because that was our intention during this meeting.
Well, I certainly don't recommend it. We've got
Because,
so much to do. We still got plenty to do, and we had four quote-unquote snow days.
So, I mean, how short are the kids gonna be on hours then? Or-
They're gonna be short. We'll be well over the minimum required number of hours, still well over.
So I guess what's the wrinkle in that? I mean,
They don't wanna pay the teachers not to be here.
Yeah, the teachers have
well,
contracted time.
But that's for us to decide, right? I mean, the teachers still have work to do.
Once kids, they do, and they do have a built-in, professional development day at the end, and for most all teachers, that is enough, because they'll start working well before the last day of school to tidy up this, to clean up that. So there will be some after the last contract day that will still be in, generally elementary teachers, not necessarily, but historically, that's what I've seen. But but there is still just plenty to do. I didn't get the data from Tracy and Tammy. How many students have we had that have been here every day all year? It's probably 0, 1, 2, or 3 maybe. What has our attendance rate been? So our kids miss plenty of school. Our teachers have 5 PTO days or a week paid off already in their contract. They had 4 extra this year, so that's 9. We have a, again, a $10,000 a day payroll that we pay. And we just have plenty to do, so.
So, I understand that. I mean, if we shorten it by 3 days, so students, they get out to 14, teachers could still be required to come for that following week.
Most of them won't. We'll just be standing around here waiting for the
So-
day to get over.
So they don't have anything to do.
No, they
I mean-
do, they just don't need 5 days.
No, I understand that.
Without students. Without students, our teachers without students, school, teachers always need some PD time, some student-free contract time. They don't need 5 days at the end of the school.
No, I understand that. You're saying they have stuff, so, I mean, what are those kids doing on these last 3 days? Are they just sitting in the classroom then? I mean.
It depends to a great deal, Justin, to be honest, and I think I heard comments last time, oh, we don't do anything. Well, you got a kindergarten teacher here, ask her what she does the last 3 days of school. She's teaching reading. And some of those kids need that reading instruction to the very last day and beyond. So if we send those kids home, they just lost 5 days of reading instruction when they're maybe just starting to get to, now, it's not a majority of our kids for sure, but we can't say, you kids are meeting standard, your summer starts, you kids stay. We do offer summer school services for some of those kids that are at risk. So it is difficult because we have different levels of, we've got students from 6 to 18. Keeping kids busy those last several days of school, it depends on the level, the teacher, the content area, a great variety of things. But they are all under the same contract, and so we have to operate as one when it comes to that.
Something else.
So what day is the actual last day of school? The
It's
20th?
Wednesday.
19.
So it's the 20th.
20th.
That's the wrong calendar. You're looking at 27, it's the 26th.
Oh, yeah, all right. Good call.
Something to note is Mrs. Hodson has a bunch, I don't know if Kyle does, you have a bunch of stuff scheduled.
We do.
So if we do go switching it up here at the 11th hour, that's gonna throw a bit of a wrinkle in all her
So
stuff
we
that she's got.
talked about this last month on doing it.
Yeah, and she mentioned it last month, but
Right.
she needed to know
Well, I mean,
ASAP so she
it's
could
not like
do all
we
that stuff.
waited till the last minute on this.
No, I'm just saying, it's
Okay.
April, and she's got stuff all lined up.
So if we wanna shorten it, when do we have to make that decision by then? I mean, I just
I'm
think our
pretty sure
school
we're
year.
not allowed to.
I think our school year's just too long.
I brought this up for 6 flipping years.
I fully think our school year's too long.
I agree, but we're never gonna win, it's always, it's just the way it is.
I wouldn't mind having something, if that's something we wanna discuss, have something in place where if we have X amount of days left, use half of them, or whatever that number is, I'm just making stuff up, but I don't really like making a decision right at the end of the year.
No, but we talked about
Where
this
we have a lot of
last, we
stuff
talked
on the
about this
calendar.
last year.
We talked about evaluating it.
And we said that
Where
was
we
too late
at
then.
in a month.
We're back.
I think, we gotta trust our administrators.
No, I know,
Our
but-
teachers know best what they do, what their needs are for the end of the year. I think we just, we
Well,
as
then
board
we
members.
we need to shorten the beginning of the year then.
We talked about.
I don't know, I
agree with you.
I haven't heard a good argument on why. I mean, I've even heard, well, some kids just need to be in school because their parents are working or they got stuff going on. I understand some, but there's a bunch of kids, we just said 55% of our students go into the workforce for trades. Geez, they'd love nothing more than to get out there and start doing that earlier.
Yeah.
And
That's-
also,
Randolph went
there's
to a
70
four.
kids that are high achieving learning or whatever.
Randolph went to a 4-day week because they wanted the kids to get outside and get into the field and do trade stuff, work on the farms. I don't know, I just don't know when to have this discussion so we could actually figure
Yeah.
something out in this.
I'm fine discussing it, I just think for next month.
I can agree with that, I agree with that.
When is it, we set the school calendar?
We did that last
We
month.
just did.
That was last,
We have-
last month, we did
Yeah.
a school. set it for next year.
Well, do you guys start taking in sports consideration and, so I mean.
Well, even though we've set next year's school calendar, we could still say, now if we have X amount of days, can we call it, 3 days shorter, or whatever that number is.
We've said
We've
this,
said that
we've
the
said
last
this for the
couple
last
years.
6 years. It's not
But
gonna
did it
happen.
just never get addressed after you talked about it? Did it
No,
never
it's
get
always
put
the
in
same
writing?
stories, the same song and dance, the kids need this, that they're gonna miss out on 3 days of school.
Song and dance.
I don't know, maybe it just needs to be explained better, I just think our school year's too long.
I know, I agree.
We could have a 175 teacher day contract, we can cut their salaries. There's an option.
You got Fridays, I don't know. Okay, well, it's a good discussion over the summer then.
Talk to the teachers too. Ask the teachers
Yeah.
if there's something, if they like that time, if there's something more valuable they could do at that time, if they want us to leave it as it is, the administration wants us.
Well, they want the days and the hours, so I guess it's.
Yeah.
You just either you justify them, there's work for them to do without students, those extra days, or, like as Dr. Arnold mentioned, a contract for shorter. Well,
All right.
there's no
Not
action,
saving us
there's no
money.
action on
You're
this
gonna have to short
one.
the contract up, right? $10,000 a day in payroll.
Ultimately, we want to retain our teachers, staff that we currently have.
Yeah, it'd be whether they value the time off.
That's not the way to offer time off, I don't think.
All right, well, I don't have anything for president's report, so we just need a motion.